Every job seeker's nightmare is to land a job which ends up being drastically different from what they have been hired for. So, whether it is 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, or even 1 year, you have decided that enough is enough. You're going to throw in the towel and leave. If you're in this unfortunate situation, then I would strongly encourage you to take the next 5 actions in order to protect your brand and also to secure your support and the chances of your future employer believing in your story and keep you hireable and marketable. So listen on. Imagine joining an environment which is supposedly conducive, but it ends up being toxic. And that means you end up having either toxic stakeholders, toxic peers, or worse, having toxic team who were supposed to report into yourself. Of late, I've also heard from one of my clients who ended in a role that was given a lot of unrealistic targets that goes beyond the core competencies that the candidate actually brings into the role. And if you were to stay on and follow that path, it can only end up with a negative outcome. So let's begin. Look at the conversation you need to have with yourself. What I mean here is spending time clarifying your thoughts. The best time to do it is immediately after leaving the organization. Give yourself due time to clarify your thoughts, to sort out and list down the factors that led you to making that decision to leave the organization. And by that, sort this list of factors into 2 buckets. One bucket whereby these are factors that are within your control. The second bucket would be a list of factors that are beyond your control. Why you want to do that is because you want to then ask yourself, all these factors that are within your control, what would you do different if the same set of factors that are beyond your control happen again? So factors that are within your control talks about your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your reaction or your response to a certain environmental stimulus. Set of factors which are beyond your control would be things like the existence of a certain individual. You know, he or she was already there before you arrive, or when you arrive, how they responded to you, it's their own decision. So those factors are beyond your control. Or maybe even the work culture, because there was even an incident that I heard of where my client have decided to leave was because the mode of communication which was deemed as acceptable in that particular work environment, where shouting matches, is the norm, which means he who shouts loudest wins. And I don't mean figuratively, I do mean literally. So it's quite a noisy environment. But what didn't help was, you are an average of 5 people that you mingle with. And so my client ended up shouting at the colleagues as well, didn't like the version of himself or herself, and decided, to call it quits. So the conversation to have with yourself, you want to write it down, you want to clarify your thoughts, you want to do yourself a favor. So pen it down, but don't take too long. Write it down in bullet forms. You know the story, you know the truth. Let all that come out in the next action. The next action talks about getting the real story out, but articulated in a manner that comes across as balanced, professional, and objective. And by that, you do need to find someone who can be brutally honest with you, because people who are closest to you, like friends and family, care a lot about you, and therefore they might hold back certain feedback that you need to hear and not that you want to hear. And so such individuals could be found in the likes of your career coach, or even a random stranger, someone whom you have just met in some networking environment, and you might want to ask for a favor to listen to the story that you have in mind to explain what happened in the past. Okay, you might ask me, why do I have to bother explaining that? Well, it matters a lot because right now you'll be searching for the next role, and it matters how that story pans out and perceived by your potential hiring manager. So listen to what comes off as too much information, cross that out. Listen to feedback where it talks about you being a little biased, cross that out. Talk about where you are clearly at fault. So you want to maybe own up that part of the action. If the same situation happen again, now that you have given more time to reflect, you might want to make changes there. So once you're ready with that, we can move on to the next action you need to take, which is zooming in on the story you talk about with regards to your ex-boss, your ex-supervisor. Now, same deal again, same guidelines. Keep your story neutral, keep your story balanced, and keep your story objective and professional. Because know it for yourself, all of us are different. We all have our own preferences. We have different personality. We make choices. Whether you agree with the way you were managed by your ex-boss, whether you agree with the decisions that your ex-boss have made, how they have gone about managing their whole team, the department, the business, it doesn't matter. What matters most is in this particular action, you want to list down areas where you agree and you are aligned with your ex-boss. You also want to call out the differences as well. Remember, staying objective. Imagine yourself as a consultant. Imagine yourself as your own career coach. How would you critique the entire situation that has led to a conflict and your ultimate decision to leave? Remember, in this particular action itself, it's not about gunning for a sympathy vote, saying how badly was I treated and stuff like that, because it is what it is. It happened in the past, and people make choices based on the environment, the situation, and the actions that they've decided to take. It's okay, but how we respond is something else, and how do we critique and review and then improve ourselves matters. So the story you spin around explaining about your ex-boss does matter. Maybe your peeve was not with your ex-boss. Maybe your peeve was with the ex-boss. Get your story right and make sure that is covered as part of action 2. But action 3 is giving really, zooming in and making sure that you are still in a good place. Now, why I say that? Because the next action, which is the most important of all the 5 actions, is to do with your advocates. Advocates are people who believed in you. Advocates could be your career sponsors. Advocates could be the recruiter who landed you the job. Did you know that some recruiters, depending on the contract they have with your hiring organization, do not receive a single cent until the candidate that they have placed pass its probation period? Advocates could even be a mutual contact, an intermediary who could be already working in that particular organization. Whoever these are, advocates actually use their own reputation to push your case forward. By you leaving the last stint based on good reasons that you have encountered, you have impacted the psychological contract with your advocates. Plus, the advocate's relationship with your previous hiring organization or supervisor is also impacted. So you need to think beyond I, me, and myself. And your action here is to get the news of your decision and your employment status out to your group of advocates before they hear it from the grapevine. And that means you have to work this out pretty quickly because no one likes secondhand news. When news becomes secondhand, it is privy to it being a gossip. And it does matter who gets the story first. It's best for your group of advocates to hear directly from the horse's mouth, which is you, and that becomes an anchor story for your advocates to make comparison with. So as you approach your group of advocates, because you have already figured out how that story should be articulated, sound it out to them, but do get their feedback as well. Because here's what you want to do. From their feedback, you are able to then sense the chances of them helping you land your next job. Plus, you might want to also demonstrate that you are willing to learn, and you want to weave their feedback into what we call your Johari window. How do they perceive you? What are the parts that you could improve on? Because advocates are advocates. They are your supporters. They are there to help you, but they will only help you if you're willing to help yourself. If you are coachable, if you are trainable, and you are open to help. So you want to do that. Now, suppose you did make a mistake and it's a legitimate mistake. Did you know that advocates can also help you? Advocates, messages that come through the advocate to the hiring manager or the hiring organization can also, lend credibility and sincerity to your owning up of the mistake. So there are a lot of merits to pay a lot of attention to this intermediary group, which is your advocate. So never lose their trust, never lose their confidence. Okay, that brings me to the last point. Because we get that a lot from job seekers. Should I even make reference that I have worked in that nasty place? Well, in your eyes, that was a nasty place, because remember, one man's meat is another man's poison. Yeah, so be very careful how you describe that. But do you mention that in the CV and maybe even in your LinkedIn? Here are some questions you want to ask yourself. Number one, were you gainfully paid? Did you receive a salary? Did you receive a CPF contribution from your employer, and did you make a contribution? If that's the case, then you have to mention, because the last thing any HR will want to do is to discover that new data that wasn't even included in your resume. And if that happens, that means you have either it is intentional or unintentional. It's best to mention that, because it is already a data point that exists in the government system. So make sure, and what's worse is, it's really interesting. What's worse is supposedly your previous organization and your future organization actually uses the same underwriting insurance firm. And that would be strange because your name actually pops up, and for those of us who are on work permit, then all the more, true transparency, just adopt that route of being truly open. What you need to really focus on is that earlier two actions, which is get your story right and learn how this story can be properly articulated, just so that the right essence of it is being understood. All right, it's a little bit of yabbling there, but I really hope that you take on these 5 crucial actions, just so you protect your brand and you give yourself a second chance to get this right. Maybe it is something that you could have prevented. Maybe it is something you could not have prevented. Whatever it is, it has enriched your experience. Okay? Now, if you find this video useful, please click the like button. And if you have not already subscribed, I hate to repeat myself, please click the subscribe button and also the notification bell just so that you get notified when new and similar videos such as this on career tips are released. And on that note, I wish you a very good Friday and a good weekend ahead. Cheers.